oxygen, and they were seeing amazing things happen. So we can learn a lot from air. Now, as we talk about negative ions, we look at where to get the highest quality. We talked about the rivers and streams. So we've got, outside you get a lot. However, inside rooms and offices, 500, 400, 300, 0. So the importance of getting air. We're also told that we can plant plants in our homes, that they give off oxygen. It's important that we're always, even when we're sleeping, having a window open, just a crack, to get that oxygen going. And so as I shared with you, we went to this hyperbaric chamber, and it was crazy because it was like $100 an hour just to go on this thing. So people would actually go there, and they would actually take their books that they were studying, and they would sit in there, and they found that they were able to retain more because of the high levels of oxygen. God designed oxygen to be a blessing to us. How about water? Let's go to Genesis 1:10. Genesis 1, verse 10. What can we learn about water? So Genesis 1, verse 10 says, "And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good," or beneficial, right? Or valuable. We learn water is very important. So someone might ask, how much water should I drink in a day? Well, there's a little, scenario or an equation that you can use. So let's just say if I'm 160 pounds, which I wish I was, you divide it by 2. Essentially, you take your body weight, divide it by 2, and that's how many ounces that you're supposed to drink in a day. So that would be 80 ounces or 10 8-ounce cups in a day. Science has told us that actually drinking 5 cups a day decreases your risk of heart attack by 50%. That when you drink, say, something like juice or Gatorade or things like that, people say, hey, there's water in there, isn't there? Well, no, there isn't. If you were to drink something with caffeine in it, say 1 cup of coffee or an energy drink, it takes 2 cups of water just to make up for the water that you've lost. Very interesting. So, Jesus is actually speaking to a woman at the well in John chapter 4, and he's thirsty. And notice he wasn't asking for coffee, he wasn't asking for tea, he was asking for water. And when he engages with this woman, he offers her the everlasting water. The question today is, where are we filling our buckets? From what fountains are we drinking from? You see, sometimes we need to go on a fast, a water fast. Under doctor supervision, people found that if they drink water for a day or 2, that their body recharges, that they're able to expel toxins. You think of the sanctuary service. Once a year, the high priest would do what to the sanctuary? He would cleanse it, right? Is it not good for us once a year to do a cleanse? I think so. Now, nutrition. Let's go to Genesis 1:13. What does the Bible say? Genesis 1:13. The Bible says, Genesis 1, verses 11. Then God said, "Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb that yields seed, and the fruit tree that yields fruit, according to its kind, whose seed is in itself," and it was so. And the earth brought forth grass, and the herb that yields seed, according to its kind, and the tree that yields fruit, whose seed is in itself, according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. There's that word keeps coming up. Beneficial, valuable. The original diet God had said is going to be beneficial. Now, we established in Genesis 2:7 that man was formed of the dust of the ground, right? It's interesting when you look at, trees, that they're made of a lot of the same materials as man. Obviously, a different entity. People often say you are what you eat, But the Bible is also hinting you are to eat what you are. Right? We're made of the dust of the ground. We should eat things that come from the ground. Nature gives us some very interesting cues when we study nature. So if you were to take a carrot, you were to cut it, and you look at it, what does that resemble on an eye, right? We understand that carrots have a lot of beta-carotene, and they help in eye function. What's that thing that beats in your chest and has 4 chambers? A heart. Well, did you know that a tomato has 4 chambers? Interesting. And how about this? This caught my attention. A walnut. The brain, exactly. You see, it has an upper and lower cerebellums. There's wrinkles on the folds. There's a left and right hemisphere. God was giving us a hint, saying, look, these things are good for you. And I'm sorry if you're allergic. They're a blessing. God says in Psalm 104:14 that God gave the herb of the field for the service of man, that God had given these foods to be a blessing to us, that they will be used in keeping our bodies healthy. Now, some archaeologists were digging in Rome, and this was kind of near the Colosseum where gladiators would often fight. And often, when you're a gladiator, usually you only had one strike, and you were out. When they dug up these gladiators in this burial ground, it was about 200 square feet, and they found that these men were buried with tridents, with swords, and with armor. And when they took the samples of the bone minerals, they found that as they went to the lab, they found that they actually ate a plant-based diet. Understanding that these gladiators would have been the rock stars of the day. They could have been eaten whatever they wanted. But if they would have survived and they needed the best endurance, they found that they ate mostly beans and barley. They found that they would heal quick if they had a chance to actually live again, and that they'd be the most agile. So these gladiators were eating from the Garden of Eden. Another story I came across, very interesting. In 1997, there was an Adventist group that built a prison. Did you hear about this story? In 1997 to 2001, they decided, you know what, we're going to give the prisoners options. The state had approved this. They said, we're going to go on the Newstart diet. And the state said, you know, you'll be lucky if you get 5% of the prisoners who are willing to try to eat this way. And they said, you know, let's just see what happens. Well, 85% of the prisoners decided to go onto this diet. What was so interesting about this was that, I know for me growing up, you would have had to probably put me in prison to eat this way. But these guys found that the ruckus that would happen in the yard and this, you know, where there was different groups and gangs that would form, they started playing basketball in the yard together. They started having none of these situations where they had to lock down the prison. Because they were offering them Bible studies and eating really good food, they did a study and they found that normally 95% of people that would go to prison in California at some point would come back. The ones that went to this prison, that went through the Newstart, only 2% visited again. Very interesting. From what we eat, does that affect how we act? I think it would. So, what can we learn from them? Now, if only we could have a car like this. It's not in the budget, and I don't think it would look too good if a pastor came to church in a car like this. I think the offerings would go down quite quickly. However, when you get a car like this and you want to maintain it, what's the first thing you'd look for in the glove compartment? The manual, right? You're not just going to take it to Great Canadian Oil Change and get it done. You're not going to buy the cheapest tires you can find. You're going to be very, very specific about how you treat this car. So, you look at the owner's guide, certain fuel goes in it, right? I couldn't say, you know, I think I'm just going to put some diesel or some regular fuel in this, right? What would happen? It would run poorly. But our bodies are really no different, right? God is saying, look, you can put in regular fuel, but he desires premium. right? You're going to run better, better efficiency. Probably not in this car. You probably won't get good gas mileage, whatever you do to it. However, God is saying, I want you to take care of this temple. Now, Adventists have been studied all over the world. You've heard of the blue zones. They're finding that Adventists that live the health message live anywhere from 7 to 10 years longer. And this is true. I came across some data where they studied some Adventists in California. And they found that Adventists that were living the health message